our second to last video in the Hebrews series, which I don't know, it just is crazy to me that we're already in chapter 12 because it doesn't seem like it's been that long. But I am excited to see you guys joining back in the series, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Emma. I am the person that runs the YouTube here, if you hadn't guessed, and I also run the Instagram blog Tea and God, and I also just started the website for the blog. But everything will be linked down below, and if you want to join our little community here after this video today, please feel free to hit the subscribe button or follow in those other places. And before we dive into Hebrews chapter 12, I would like to do a focus on our tea of the day. Firstly, I just want to, be excited because this is one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite teacups ever, and I got it at the antique store, and it was such a steal because it was the cup and this saucer and a little plate for like $12, which if you ever buy antique teacups, they're not usually that cheap. So, yes. But our tea of the day today is one of my all-time favorites. It is the Yogi ginger tea. I am not a huge, I don't love the taste of ginger tea, but I feel great after I drink ginger tea, and this is one of the best tasting ones that I've tried. So, if you just want to feel great after it and you're not a huge fan of ginger, I would recommend trying this one. But yes, before I ramble on too much longer, let's dive right on in to Hebrews chapter 12. Let me grab my Bible. Oh, and as usual, again, sorry, before we dive right on in, I am reading my English Standard Version Bible by Crossley Books, and it's a journaling one, and I love it. But yes, let us dive right on in. So, Hebrews chapter 12, starting in verse 1. My bang is going crazy. Okay, so it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is now seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood." I'm going to pause there. I just finished verse 4. I have some tea really quick because I love tea. But, sorry. I'm going to just back up to verse 1. It says, to lay aside every weight and sin, which so easily entangles. And I also think that it's important when it says that weight also counts as the things that we've done in the past that have been sins that God's already forgiven us for, but that we either haven't forgiven ourselves or haven't forgiven the other person for. And I think that it's so important to forgive those things. Otherwise, you're carrying a weight that God has already forgotten and that is gone. So you're just holding this thing that is only impacting you and only making you miserable because God's forgiven you for it. So one thing in that is that, and I also just think it's important, as verse 1 says, that we need to run the race. You shouldn't be, you're going to have to dodge through the drudgery sometimes, so you might have to take it down to a jog or walk, but you want to try and run the race that God has laid out for you, because he's going to be there, and he's what you need to keep your focus on. And then, carrying on from that, verses 2 through 4 just reminded us that we can only truly be free and truly just experience the best life we can have if we're focusing on Jesus, because Jesus is the author and perfecter of everything, and so if you want to live the best life you can, you need to have your focus on him, because he'll show you how to live that best life. He'll show you what you need to do to have what he's given you already that you're coming into, if that makes sense. Sorry, that was kind of a random tangent. But into verse 5 it says, "And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives." And that is from Proverbs 31:11 and 12. And it's just really important for us to remember that as God's children, he's going to correct us. Your parents only correct you because they love you. They don't want you to do something stupid and fall on your face. And while the correction can be annoying sometimes, they did it because they care about you. And in the same way, God sees each of us as his children, and so he wants to correct us so that we can live the best life that he has for us, if that makes, does that compute? So continuing on into verse 7, it says, It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which you have all participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? And again, he lets us make, I feel like there are people that think that, if God really cared about me, he'd never let anything bad happen to me. And that's not the case. When bad things happen to us, it's because of sin in the world. It's not God being like, haha, sucker, take this. And that being said, it's important to remember that he lets us fall on our face so that he can correct us and show us a better way. In the same way, if you're a parent, or not if you're a parent, but when you were a child, when you were learning how to walk, your parents didn't hold your hand the entire time. They let you try and do it on your own. They took the training wheels off your bike, They let you do things so that you would learn how to do it, and they helped you up and showed you how to do it a better way when you did fail. But they didn't just hold your hand and, never let you fall at all either, if that makes sense. Because if they did that, you would never grow and learn and mature as a person, because you would be always needing them, and always, as we learned in, I think it was chapter 10, you always need to have milk and not solid food. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So continuing on into verse 10, it says, "For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful, rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." And again, that just is reminding us that those who truly love us are going to correct us and teach us a better way to do things. And in the same way, God does that with us. He wants to show us the best way to do life so that we can do it with him, because that is the best way to do life. You know what I mean? So, continuing into verse 12, it says, "Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed." And I want to just do this thing. If you look at where you are now, and you look at who you want to become, you just sit in God's presence with that in your mind, and just pray and try and figure out with him a plan. Like it says, make straight paths for your feet. Try and figure out a plan to get there. And, that plan is always going to be moving and changing along the way, because that's how life goes. But at least if you have that plan that you make with God, you know roughly where you need to go, even if he only shows you the first step of the staircase. Into verse 14, it says, "Strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it become defiled. That no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. For you know that afterward he desired to inherit the blessing. He was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with tears." And I'm going to back up to verse 14 and 15. As, the Bible tells us all throughout, but we are called to love yet again. We need to love above all else and show people around us the love that Christ has shown us. And in verse 17, I think that, again, it's important to remember that you don't want to let yourself get to the point where it's too late, because ultimately God is always going to forgive you, but you don't want to get to the point where you're on your deathbed and you haven't surrendered your life yet, and then you get to the judgment and he doesn't know who you are. You never want to get to that point, because you have all this time here on earth to do and become a better Christian and to develop that relationship with Christ. And it's in doing that you won't lose that chance, if that makes sense. I don't know where I was going with that. I went off on a tangent. But anyways, continuing in verse 18, it says, "For you have not come to what may be touched, a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest, and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that no further messages be spoken to them. For they could not endure the order that was given. If even a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, 'I tremble with fear.' But you have come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering. and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. And I'm going to pause there because I just think it's really cool that, like, as Christians, we get to experience that. Because, like, that's awesome if you think about it. We get to, like, it just is so cool. But anyways, continuing into verse 25, it says, "See that you do not refuse him who is speaking. For if they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape if we reject him who warns from heaven. At the time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens." This phrase, "yet once more," indicates the removal of things that are shaken, that is, things that have been made, in order that the things that cannot be shaken remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, and thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. And because he's a consuming fire, I think it's really cool that, he chooses to live in us and use us as his living temple and living sanctuary so that we can not only minister to other people, but that consuming fire is in us and will continue to consume us as we spend more and more and more time with him. I don't know. It's just really cool. And that's my thoughts on Hebrews chapter 12. If you guys have any thoughts, please let me know in the comments or send me a message on Instagram or anything like that. Let me know what your thoughts are. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope that you got something out of it. And if you did, and you feel like somebody that you know could get somebody out of it, feel free to share it or leave a like on the video. And if you would like to get more content like this, usually once a week, maybe twice a week, we'll have to just see once school starts especially. But if you guys want to stick around, please feel free to subscribe or follow on Instagram because I do more daily and weekly content on there. And yes, as always, if you guys leave this video knowing nothing else, I hope you guys know how loved and cherished you are, the God who created you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.